All right, y'all, welcome to the Intrusive Thoughts Show, kind of just covering news events kind of going on, and just random political topics, economic topics, whatever I feel like talking about. So today we're going to look at this new conflict that has arisen from Yemen. This comes on the heels of Israel and Hamas, as you know. There's been obviously a long-going conflict there, long before I was born, long before half the people who even served in Congress right now. Well, no, they're probably around then. Never mind, they're old. But anyway, so basically, we have this Houthi rebel movement in Yemen. It's a civil war. It's an internal conflict, but we are involved largely because Saudi Arabia is involved supporting their government there. It's a complex conflict that's kind of been going on there. But what concerns me about this is a couple things that actually this article even alarmed me even more. First of all, they said they put they conspicuously placed aircraft carriers and fighters in position to respond quickly. Why would you do it conspicuously? That's what I want to know. I'm no conspiracy theorist, but why would you, just from a military perspective, why would you, I don't know, at least try to like kind of hide them or like make it so like not out there, I guess. I mean, again, I don't know what has happened behind the scenes and what's been going on, but and look, I agree that any nation should be able to support, defending their supplies and resources going through the Suez Canal in particular. Very vital trade route. It's get very bad for the economy very quick. So there is an economic reason there, but the actual direct strikes in Yemen, because they're directly striking like bases for this Houthi movement in Yemen, without congressional approval. And what I think I just read, yeah, I just read this. They're now on a tomorrow will be the 100th day since hostages were taken by Hamas into Gaza, which that is, yeah, there's hostages going on there, hostage taking going on, but there's just been a lot of death and destruction going on, and the regional war no one wanted is here. How wide will it get? If you have to ask that question, you're failing as a leader. Absolutely 100,000%. This is some of the worst fighting that has happened in this region. I mean, here's just from the several conflicts that have taken place in the region, kind of on and off, basically as typical with these type of wars. But 18,000, Palestinians and 1,300 Israelis were killed. These are some of the highest. Not to mention the displacement. That is what we should be looking at. 1.9 million displaced, 500,000 Israelis displaced. And if you look at these other numbers, they're not even close to that. These are more than double. This is some of the worst fighting in this conflict that has happened probably in the seven. It's been going on for like 75 years, it looks like, based on what I was able to read. So that is not good. Um, all right, as I was saying before, my microphone decided to be all weird. Yeah, this is like some of the worst fighting that's happened in this region, like ever. Um, this isn't just about, people wanting to take a side in this, because this conflict has just been awful. Innocent people are getting tossed in between, and it's unfortunate. There's been multiple attempts at peace. But I think it just all goes back, I think, to a failure of our political leaders once again to establish a Jewish state in a way that I guess was at least considerate of the Arab neighbors kind of in that area. Um, as we did kind of just, do it and kind of went ahead with it. And first of all, I don't like how the public has been dealing with this conflict, taking a side in it, because I don't want to take no side on it. I don't think I really can, because it is so nasty. There's been so many people dying. More on the Palestinian side, it looks like so far. So you can see why people like are not happy about this. I haven't seen the breakdown of civilian and, actual military leaders, but when you have 18,000 Palestinians getting shot at, like that's a problem. That's a problem. Um, but I think we really just need to talk about our overall foreign policy just in this country, because it's just been atrocious ever since I've been alive. Going into places which, look, there's bad people and stuff, and I get that, but we need to be very careful on how we deal with this. The fact that they're talking about a regional war, do you know how many people are going to die? It's going to make the all the stuff that happened in the Balkans in the 90s look like nothing. Like this is getting really this is the most like destabilized Middle East, probably possibly more than ever before. And I thought we were making good strides there for a while, and we definitely were. But what's concerning, again, is just the overall foreign policy of not needing congressional approval, which has been changed by the War Powers Act. And while I wanted to take out, obviously, terrorists, in these countries that actually directly attack the United States, we also weren't considerate of how much we should do that and how much, we should be striking back. Because I'm not denying we should be, defending our ships and whatnot, but I do question, going on the offensive more in a place like Yemen. And it's like I said, when you have the people in Yemen saying they're going to strike back, and with people with public opinion turning against you, it is not good, for your reelection chances whatsoever. There needs to be a peace process right now. Like I said, I'm not justifying anything that they've done, with Hamas attacking, in October and whatnot. But we need to be careful about how we respond to these people because if we go in there and really just absolutely diminish and demolish the place, um, there's just going to be forever. There already is resentment. You can't bomb public sentiment of your country away. You can't bomb the fact that these countries are never going to like us ever again, probably, honestly. They will never like us again for actions that go back a whole century, honestly, from, imperialism and, ruling over these countries and whatnot and, directly controlling their affairs and stepping on their national sovereignty. And let's just also look at the death toll. So, obviously, 400,000 people just died in World War II from the U.S. side of things. But since World War II, we've had 19 wars, 12 million dead. That is the entire population of entire states in this country, all dead. Just think about that for a sec. And we've spent just since I was born, we've spent $8 trillion, $8 trillion on wars, 8 trillion, and we still I what well, like I said, while I understand, obviously taking out certain terrorist groups like Al Qaeda and whatnot, why did we go beyond that? We went way beyond our mandate again. The problem that we're seeing with a lot of our U.S. foreign policy is what's the exit strategy? What's the end game? Because they just seem to want to just keep shoving my money into these other countries. They keep wanting to, do all that. And it's just like, and you look at what's happening in our own country right now is terrible. I mean, you have 10 million illegals entering our country illegally because Joe Biden literally let them in to the point where even people in his own party are criticizing him. I mean, that's not good. Like I tried to warn, like this, you cannot have open borders like that. I'm empathetic to people and whatnot, but we cannot do that. It is not sustainable. The current trajectory of this country is just not sustainable right now. We cannot sustain three wars. We have a war in Yemen, we have a war in Ukraine, we have a war in Israel right now, basically, just since Biden took office. Not to mention already existing involvement that was happening in Yemen. I think, I don't remember the extent of it. I know it was somewhat more diplomatically, economically, kind of. But it is just not sustainable whatsoever. Um, like I said, when you spend $8 trillion in just 22 years, more than we've ever done, and $8 trillion just since 2020 with COVID and everything, like we are like in deep trouble. Like there's big problem going on here. So with our foreign policy, another point that I really, really need to make is this idea of nation building. It's wanting to make these places democratic. It's wanting to make them look like America. We can't do that. These places won't do it. They actually were. Some of these places were democratic, actually, but we during the Cold War took out many democratically elected leaders, um, and replaced them with probably people who were way worse, and then they got replaced with people who were even worse. Such is the cycle, it seems. And like I said, what is the end game for the United States here? Because it is not good. Um, we just pulled out of Afghanistan. That's another one I really, really need to talk about because, like I said, we obviously needed to take out Al Qaeda. No one's denying that. No one's denying that. Those were the people responsible, and whatnot. But to go after, the Taliban, which again, they're awful people, don't get me wrong, and they did harbor them, but for it to go on for as long as it did, to try to nation build there, and the way that we left there, I mean, they call Afghanistan the graveyard of empires for a reason, because many, like the Soviets, for example, they poured a lot of resources into trying to take it for themselves, and it drained them. Probably was one of the reasons, one of the many probably, obviously, but one of the many reasons that, we were able to, I guess, ultimately, win the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union. And haven't learned a thing from that whatsoever because we're now doing the same thing Russia did, honestly. We are pushing wars in places that don't like us, that already hate us. We are pushing wars in places by not using our leverage, not using our position, not negotiating, those type of things. And it's just sad, first of all, that all these people have to die. Americans, Palestinians, Israelis, because we have stupid leaders in power, stupid people in power who are making bank off these wars, whose Lockheed Martin Starks are probably up like doubles, in just probably a couple of years. I mean, I've looked at that stock. It is insane. It's at trading at like $425 last I checked. They're a big military company if y'all don't know. Um, but what I just it just feels so like America last to me. And it's in our constitution that we're supposed to def, defend our common welfare or whatever. I might have said that wrong, but promote the general welfare. General welfare. My bad. And I don't think we're doing that. When you can't afford a house, when people are overdosing on drugs, when you have 10 million illegals coming into the point where they're canceling school in New York. Did you hear about that? When you have biggest progressive Cardi B, for example, saying, what the heck is Joe doing? I regret. I'm not endorsing nobody. Like, what are we doing as a country? Like, is it like I just don't get it, honestly. It baffles me that some of these decisions these people are making, and that includes Biden. He's finished. Democrats need to replace him, honestly, with good leadership. Y'all could have done better, honestly. Y'all could do better. And even to some extent, I would even say the GOP could do better. We could do better as a country. This idea of forever wars that have no end goal, no end in sight, with war crimes not even talked about in the media whatsoever, and with just everyone raising their flag and taking their side and picking their faction and picking their so-called stake in the war with such conviction and such, I guess, yeah, with such conviction. Meanwhile, our own country, like I said, is just not where it used to be. My, will I ever even be able to afford a house, like ever in this country? You can't even have kids in this country. It is impossible. Childcare is ridiculous in this country. And I know we disagree, maybe on what solutions we have, but my thing is, and another thing that really irks me, was during one of the GOP debates, they were talking about how, oh, we can do all these wars. We can do both. We can defend our border and we can do all these wars and do all this BS. But every time we've been so focused on these regional wars and so focused on this, a recession happens. Or something bad in our country happens. The 2008 recession happened while we were so narrow-mindedly focused on, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The 2020, coronavirus also happened, during some of that as well. During, I know there was, the striking of Soleimani in Iran, which I criticize Trump for that because I do think it could have escalated, and we're lucky it didn't, honestly. I know he'll probably say, he was a bad guy. Maybe there's some argument there, but generally speaking, there's not a strategy for our wars anymore. It seems to be just chuck our money, keep the defense contractors happy and line our own politicians' pockets. It's sending young men and women like myself at the age of 22 into these wars. People thinking that they're being noble and serving America. Um, and for a time that held true, that you were defending your country, you were defending your home. But it's just ever since I've been alive, honestly, they've been offending our home, forcing our will on other countries, saying we have to defend democracy in the world, and we can't even defend it in our own country when they censor free speech, when they arrest their political opponents, when they, do all this stuff. And it's just so warped to me, and it baffles me. And it baffles me that these politicians can look at me and with their straight face and say, we're going to go to war, we're going to strike these people, we're going to send all these young men and women into a war, and just do it so cold and so they don't care and so recklessly, honestly. So reckless, it's insane, actually. I mean, I've never seen such recklessness in foreign policy in this country, in any country. This is how, a country's collapse is they get focused, try to become empires, first of all. That's the main problem, first of all. Um, you can't be an empire. Empires always fall. And we're next. Unless we start getting our act together and saying we're going to be a nation and not an empire. And that's what we need to start doing. We need to start being a nation focused on our own borders, focused on our own people. But at the moment, they don't. They're the political class that's ruling over all of us, our so-called overlords. They don't want it. They would rather fight people in countries that I honestly don't even know if they could point to on a map because half of them are geriatric. Can barely, probably some of them can barely walk. And freeze, in the mid sentence and stuff like that. I don't claim to be the most fluent talker or whatever, but like, come on. I mean, if you're gonna be the president of the United States and you can't even get a sentence out, like, you need to go. Like, that's bad. Like, that's a threat to our national security more than anything, honestly. If you can't even if you don't even know what day it is, I mean, we have geriatric fools running this country who like to say, oh, we're being entitled this, that, and the other. No, you've squandered our wealth, you squandered our prosperity, and you squandered the American dream to fill your own pockets. And you're supposed to be working for us, not the other way around. So I guess to end all this, all I gotta say is our foreign policy needs to become America first yesterday. Um, it needs to prioritize the needs of its civilians. It needs to prioritize, promoting our general welfare, those type of things. Um, and we can't, and the thing that I don't like is we can't say no to these wars. I don't get a say. I don't get to say, I don't want to go to Iraq. I don't want to go to Afghanistan. I don't want to go to Israel. I don't want to. I don't want to be involved there. And these people, they use their drafts and force us to fight their wars. And if you say no, you get arrested. You get arrested for saying, I don't want to kill people. Just think about that for a minute, actually, now that I think about it. Like, I don't want to kill people. I don't. I don't want to be involved in a war that could have been prevented easily, always easily. So much of it could have been prevented, I think. We just have stupid people in power. We have bad leadership. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it in my 22 years of living. I've just I've only known an America that's paranoid and has TSA and all that. Like, I can't even fathom like what it looked like before TSA was even invented. Like, I think about that. I'm like, you used to be able to literally walk in to like the actual gate of an airport and send people off and say goodbye. Now you have to do it at a gate that's like hundreds of meters before the gate, like a pre-check gate or whatever. Um, and obviously I know there's a need for security and whatnot, but it's just this general like this fear society that I've seen since I've been alive. This paranoia. Um, like I just I just will never see a country before that time, honestly. All right, anyway, I'm done, y'all. That was my little spiel for the day. See ya.